The Ford Mustang is one of the best performance bargains on the planet. For just 25 grand, you can get yourself a pretty incredible sports car. But if you want something with the word Shelby on it, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more. This is the Shelby Mustang GT350R, and it starts at $62,000. Is it worth twice the cost? There's only one way to find out. And what better way to enter the track than with a little bit of launch control? And on the track is where you really want to be to drive this car, because that is where you can let this engine stretch its legs. It's a 5.2 liter V8 with a flat plane crank configuration, which means it just wants to rev and rev and rev. Oh, and it sounds so good while it does so. It'll give you 526 horsepower and take it to 60 in just about 3.5 seconds, which is pretty good for a Mustang. The controls feel nice and light, the pedal placement is perfect. The steering wheel is a little bit vague, which means you're hunting for grip a little bit on the front end, but you don't need the G-meter in the dashboard to tell that you've got plenty of adhesion from these massive, meaty tires, which makes you pretty damn thankful for all the big bolstering you've got in these seats and the gripping material that holds you right in place as you are really taking advantage of everything this car has to offer. It is loud, it is raw. Oh man, is it fun. But of course, not every day can be a track day. The Mustang needs to be a car that works on the road too, and the GT350R actually does a surprisingly good job at making that transition. Hit one button on the steering wheel here and the exhaust quiets up, and while this will never be a quiet car as such, there's a whole lot of road noise going on, it is a lot more civilized at least. Hit another button, the suspension softens up, and again, it's not exactly a comfortable ride, but it's actually reasonably well refined. I spent a couple of hours on Michigan highways in this thing, and I didn't hate myself afterward. That's saying something. The seats actually are surprisingly comfortable on the road too. They hug you really well on the track, but for me at least, they're reasonably comfortable on the road. They're not going to fit everybody, but if you happen to slot in nicely, they're all right. The GT350 has been outfitted with Ford's latest version of Sync 3.0, which is nice and responsive. It's a huge update from what they've had before. It's a little bit basic looking, but ultimately all the functionality that you really want in an infotainment system is built right here. It's all very responsive and very quick and easy to access, which is really all that you need. Unfortunately, there's no Android Auto in this version of Sync, but you do have other connectivity options, and there is app connectivity in there. And since Android Auto is coming to Sync 3.0, there's at least some hope that they'll update this version in this car to enable you to get the full connectivity if you're an Android user. And when you're moving on the road a little bit slower, you have more time to appreciate some of the finer details of the interior. And overall, things are quite nice in here. I do have some complaints. For example, these toggle switches are very cheap and plasticky feeling, and they really aren't toggles at all. They only move in one direction. Some of the other materials are a bit plasticky too, but overall, this is a pretty good place to be. But only for one passenger. They've deleted the rear seats. We knew the 350R would be pretty quick in a straight line, but what we didn't know was just how quick it would be out here on the circuit. It can absolutely hustle. Okay, I think the wing is too loud for a lot of people, and the price certainly puts it out of reach for a lot more, but when you consider that this car can keep up with supercars costing many times more, you gotta say the 350R is something of a bargain.